How's it going, everybody? This is Novakast back with another video for you guys. And with this one, how do I begin? Okay, so love it or hate it. I know there's, again, there's fans of this show. There's also people that have a kind of point of contention with this particular show, especially when it comes to some of the characters. But all in all, this is an intriguing situation. We'll be talking about at least the next few reviews after this one. We'll be talking about the movie renditions of the story of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, for those who don't know, Neon Genesis Evangelion was originally, I believe, on the top of my head, a 27 episode anime series that kind of abruptly ended in a really weird way, but was then cleared up by several movies. Well, at least a film that basically was a rehash of everything that happened, and the end of Evangelion, which was basically the final ending of the show. At least that's what we thought. Now with this is a retelling of, or at least what we're going to be talking about, a 4-movie series, or 4-part series, of a retelling of the show. Now, something I should mention too is it doesn't completely follow the original show bit by bit. There's a lot of things that they change and a lot of things that they kept in. More so, especially when it comes down to I want to say, like, closely to the story of what we saw for the show. For numbers 1 and 2. For 3 and 4, it is a completely different story. So, it's going to be interesting. So, with this, let's go ahead and talk about, or at least for this video, Evangelion, or Neon Genesis Evangelion 1.0, You Are Not Alone. Okay, so kind of trying not to spoil too much, but I will say that for those who already know the media and probably haven't seen the movies yet, though I wouldn't be surprised, or would be surprised actually, if you didn't see the movies yet, but for 1.0, or to some degrees, I've noticed that there's also 1.11, which, by the way, I say that, but where I watched this was actually on Amazon Prime, and it is 1.11 for the dub, or at least the variation that we watched. And anyways, the show, or the movie itself, follows up to episodes 1 through 6 of the original show, and to an extent it flows really well, especially, like, more so keeping with the better points of what's going on, especially with, really kind of sticking with the focus of, the main character Shinji, who, to an extent, again, not everybody's favorite character, but we'll talk about him more, but following him and his struggles to try to cope with what's going on around him, and to an extent trying to deal with having pretty much the weight of the world on his shoulders and piloting this, monster or machine, whatever it is, called an Ava. Throughout the episodes, or throughout the story, we see our characters facing off against what are called angels, which are basically these giant monstrosities that are pretty much come to Earth to destroy all of humanity. And that's the basic premise. By the way, for those who have not seen the show, that is the basic premise. Is basically teenagers getting into giant robots and fighting monsters. Sounds like any other anime. Hell, I'd probably assume that a few people would probably just assume Power Rangers. But Now I think about it, that does make sense. But in the end, I think all in all, especially again with it only focusing on 6 episodes, it does flow smoothly to a good degree. And I will say this too, especially when it comes to story bits, and I've seen the show before, there are certain details that they decide to kind of not hold on till later sections. One in particular where they show this big reveal of one of the angels is pushed towards the end of this movie in a way to kind of help motivate Shinji to fight in the Eva. All in all, this, again, the story itself is really cool. The setting itself, where again it sets it up where we've had like at a certain point in time we've had half of the population pretty much being Thanos from existence thanks to these angels, and we now have to kill them. That's basically it. So, all in all, cool. I really like it. At least, again, for this first part. All in all, it's cool. But either way, it's intriguing. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next category, which is characters.
Or the mental health field, but to an extent, I've seen, with...
Okay, characters. And I know a few people would probably suspect, and I've thought about this too, probably suspect that I'm going to shit on the main character. I've been thinking about that, and honestly, to some degree, part of me does. But to some extent, especially with the situation of... Because this is a situation where a character deals with anxiety, more likely depression, and also dealing with neglect and abandonment. I can kind of see where this character is coming from. And by the way, I am talking about Shinji, everybody's least favorite character. Now, before anybody, kind of sharpens their pitchforks and, light their torches, please understand, again, this is looking at it in a more of mental health understanding. And by the way, I'm not a counselor or therapist or anything in the medical field or the mental health field, but to an extent I've seen, with certain people that I've known deal with anxiety and depression, and to an extent I can understand and in some way relate to Shinji. I mean, not to a great extent. I mean, I myself, as probably as many other people that would probably see this video, have dealt with their own anxiety before. But to an extent with an individual who, again, I think they mentioned it too if it comes to the old hedgehog's dilemma example metaphor thing that they did, which I honestly thought was really cool. I always love that in, at least especially when it comes to the original show. But again, with Shinji, again, somebody who is dealing more likely with anxiety, depression, constantly contemplates whether he should live, as well as dealing with abandonment issues, neglect. I can understand, again, the situation he's in, especially when, all this responsibility is thrusted upon him, and he wonders if he can do it, and is always scared of what's going to happen, and dealing with this whole scenario. Again, I can understand it. So to an extent, when it comes down to shitting on Shinji, because I know a lot of people will just say, just get in the Eva, Shinji. I can understand him, to an extent. I mean, it gets old, but at the same time, it's, especially with, again, somebody who's dealt with mental health and has people, or known people that have dealt with mental health, I understand. And to an extent, I don't understand, especially when it comes down to, again, in a situation like that. I can only imagine, or at least try to imagine, the mental just scarring that would cause a young teenager. But, anywho, enough talking about Shinji. Let's talk about Rei. And moving on, Misato is an interesting character to an extent. I mean, she holds a place of authority, but at the same time tries to. It has her moments of being entertaining, playful, especially with like when we see her in the first moment of, or at least not the first moment. Actually, no, I take that back. The first moment, as well as when she's inviting Shinji into her home. But at the same time, trying to be very, very, very supportive to Shinji. Especially with, again, everything that he goes through. Ritsuko, although we've seen her only a few times, to an extent, is on and off interesting. Especially when, like, in the background we see her talking to, like, Genji, Ikari, who is Shinji's father. And clearly she is kind of like the brains of the operation, which I always thought was kind of cool. Then we have the variety of different other characters. Now, Gendo, actually, since we talked about Gendo is a cold, hard bastard. He really is. This guy is a piece of shit, but at the same time, he's very calculating. And to a degree, I fucking love it. I mean, you can't tell whether... I mean, it's clear as you watch the movie, as well as watch the show, there is a clear motive to his what's going on. Especially with the situations of him abandoning his son, him treating his son like shit. It's all ordained, as they would probably believe. Every little thing that they do has a purpose. There's always something going on. Which, to a degree, I find interesting. Especially with what happens later in the series. Again, never want to spoil too much. But at the same time, it's good. It's really good.
Hedgehog's Dilemma example, which I always thought was an interesting one.
Alright, so, animation. Always my iffy situation, or iffy topic, because especially when it comes to anime, you have a blend, or at least sometimes a blend of bad 3D animation mixed in with 2D animation. Surprisingly, though, the 3D animation, if we see anything at all, though I think to an extent, the couple times we do see it is with, I believe, the 5th and 6th Angel, as far as I know. I know there's some probably other things that I'm forgetting, but all in all, when it comes to those two examples, are done really well. One thing in particular that I should probably mention, since this is a retelling of the original story, a lot of things are updated. A lot of the designs are updated a little bit, which honestly, I really like. My favorite has to be with the 6th Angel, where originally, when it came to the particular monster that the 6th Angel was, it originally was just a giant cube. Or not a cube, but a... like kind of a diamond. In this version, it is that, but what it does is, especially when it goes to attack, it literally changes its shape. It's almost like a prism or a kaleidoscope effect, which honestly it looks really cool. Especially like thinking about how deadly it is when it finally attacks, especially with like full force attacks against its enemies. Another interesting design was for the 5th Angel, which looks like a giant centipede, which again, it looks menacing. It really does. Then we have the updates to pretty much the surroundings, everything else. It just looks good. Whatever they were doing when it comes down to using color and as well as other effects is pretty spot on. I enjoy looking at this. This is an anime that is done really, really well, or at least an anime film. All in all, I am truly impressed, and this is probably one of my biggest aspects to the whole movie. The other one is actually coming up right now.
Who, again, I think they mention it too when it comes to the Hedgehog's Dilemma.
Okay, so as I've gotten older, I've noticed, especially for film, I'm a sucker for music. Music is one of those things that really, especially when it comes down to really kind of dramatic moments, music is the thing that would usually draw you in. And to an extent, a large extent, the music in this film is done exceptionally well. Now, first, there is the renditions of some of the classic themes, or at least classic scores, which honestly is just well done. Now, there is one song in particular that I absolutely enjoy. In fact, there are times where I just want to play it on repeat because of how good it is. And that is a track called Angel of Doom. And it is a song that is played near the very end of the movie. The way it's set up is you have the orchestra, but you also have what I'm assuming is like an operatic chorus. Hopefully I said that correctly. And just the mix between the instruments and the chorus is so freaking good and gets you pumped for whatever's happening. And believe me, it is, like, especially with the climax of the film, it is done really well. So, music itself is exceptional, and I adore it. It was a, A+ for me.
In the medical field or the mental health field, but to an extent, I've seen.
Alright, so this is going to be a tough one, because, honestly, for the most part, I didn't see any problems with this. At least, in my eyes, I didn't see any problems with it. All in all, this was an intriguing film, because again, this is a retelling of, first couple of episodes. And with this situation, a lot of people would look at this and hate on it because of Shinji. But in reality, and again, and just so you guys know, this is just my opinion. I mean, you guys can have an opinion about the film, but here's just my opinion. Again, when it comes to Shinji, I have absolutely no problem with him, because again, I understand and have some idea of what he could possibly be going through. And for somebody who, again, has dealt with anxiety, as a lot of other people have, I can see where he's coming from. Music is excellent. Animation is well done. Story is intriguing, especially when, again, even though it is a retelling of Neon Genesis Evangelion, they do a few things differently to kind of keep you on your toes. All in all, I was intrigued with this film and looking forward to it, and forward to the next one, especially when, again, it seems like, halfway through the 4-part series, they do their own thing. So, really, really excited for that. But for now, though, I'm going to go ahead and, what should I give this? You know what? To play fair, I don't care. It's my show. Neon Genesis Evangelion 0. Or 1.0 or 1.11 for me. I'm just going to say it gets a 9 out of 10. Honestly, for the most part, I had no gripes with this whole particular game or movie. Sorry. I just for the most part, I have no issues with it. Again, I think if anything, the whole Shinji, crying about not wanting to pilot the Eva does get old. Raise a blank slate. Gendo, although I kind of applaud him for being an asshole, he's still an asshole. But either way, 9 out of 10 for me, and that is my final score for this movie review.
I myself, as probably as many other people that would probably see this video, have dealt with their own anxiety before.
And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one, take care, and I will see you guys in the next video.